Quetzalcoatl. Um, can you please explain what is the difference of peyote from other master plants, particularly ayahuasca?
Well, first of all, if you're not familiar at all with these plants, I'll give a basic understanding.
Mhm.
Ayahuasca is made from combining two plants from the jungle. One is a vine that grows in very tall and has flowers, and they use the bark and the little branches from the ayahuasca, and they mix it with another plant that's growing. It's like a bush and has big leaves. So they mix these two and they boil it for 5 days, praying on it, and it creates a drink, ayahuasca. And this ayahuasca is a very strong medicine, very powerful, very loving medicine, and it helps. It works through the chemicals they call DMT, which is the abbreviation for one of the chemicals that stimulates visions in the mind, and also can heal different parts of your body through this process. So ayahuasca is like this. It's used in most rainforest people, the Amazon, Colombia, parts of Central America, even into Mexico. There could be ayahuasca, all the way down to Peru, Ecuador, like this. Okay, peyote, on the other hand, is a small cactus that grows in the desert and has alkaloids in it. The one that the German scientists isolated about 100 years ago is called mescaline. And this is also found like in San Pedro cactus and different cactus. And this helps the mind to perceive, increases the sensory perception in the mind. And the cactus is just like that. You don't really have to cook it. You could eat it just raw like this. So these little cactus are good because they also help stimulate the endocrine system. So it helps you regulate your body. It helps your body regulate the production of different hormones, and also helps with cell functioning. So it helps your intuition. It helps your creativity. It helps your thought processes. It helps your emotional state. And it also has like antibiotics and antiviral properties. So this cactus peyote is good for your health generally, your physical health and also your emotional health, and it helps your mental processes. And more important, I think it helps your energetic, your spirit. So when you use these plants in combination with ceremonies, you have a very healing effect. And with peyote, it's also a very grounding effect, which you would call grounding, because it's a plant that has a strong root to the earth. So in general, I would say these are two of the basic characteristics of ayahuasca and peyote.
Mhm. Can you describe the ceremony setting itself, the peyote ceremony?
So the peyote ceremonies usually has fire in the middle of the altar. So if you're able to do it outside, we construct a fire and tend it very carefully so that it looks, very neat. And this is the central aspect of the circle of people that are sitting around the fire. And then we usually play music, and we could dance, and then we also pray with, tobacco, and we use different herbs like cedar, sage, copal, essence like this, for incense to clear the auras, and then we usually try to sit as close as we can to the ground, to the earth. And yeah, we try to start when it gets dark, and we go until the morning. This is the usual setup. And this is done also to help the people connect with the elements. So at some point we'll bring water into the ceremony, put it in by the altar, pray with the fire, the water, the earth, the air, and then we drink the water. The water gets charged up with all of these prayers and good intentions, and then we all partake of the water. And we usually do this, like we like to pray with tobacco, eat peyote, pray with the elements, and sing songs. And sometimes we dance. So we try to keep it simple. It's not very complicated, but it's very powerful
Mhm.
form for it.
And there is this flower ceremony at the end.
The flower ceremony is something that we have fused. It's like a fusion. And some of our other traditions, we use flowers on the altars and we give blessings with the flowers. And because I'm part of this tradition and I'm also part of the peyote tradition, like we kind of brought them together to help the people. We put the flowers on the altar and we pray on them all night, and then we use them in the morning to bless ourselves. And with music and with flowers and incense, and it makes you feel really good when you're in the morning after you've been eating peyote all night.
And I know that through my experiences with ayahuasca, it's a very individual process, right? You typically either lie down or sit down in a very meditative state, typically in darkness. Most of the night, sometimes at the end, when the energies rises, people can dance and sing. But you go through your own process. Is the peyote similar or the opposite? Is there a lot of interaction, or are you typically with your own space in your own mind?
Well, there's many ways to do peyote ceremonies, and this can also happen. Like if you go to the desert and you want to do this individual process, sometimes they make a fire, and the person leading the ceremony will take you out into the desert and give you peyote if you want to do this individual darkness meditation. However, there's also another type of ceremony where you're developing the collective spirit, the collective field, the collective energetic field. So on this one, people are asked to kind of get out of their self a little bit and participate into the collective ceremony aspects. So sometimes we'll have a central intention, like we could be praying for maybe a couple that's getting married, or a little baby that's going to be born, or somebody's birthday, or maybe for somebody to get healed. So including your own individual prayers or intentions, we also have a central intention. And so everybody's asked to join on that. It could be peace for the world, or to clean up a lake, or to save a beach or something. It could be anything really, but it's just where everybody's thinking together along the same lines and putting their good intentions for the same purpose. And in this way, this is the way the Native people did to develop like this tribal spirit.
And another question is, in ayahuasca, very frequently people experience meeting one-on-one with death, or experiencing somewhat like their birth experience, when they feeling like they're dying and then they're getting reborn again. So a lot of connection and understanding of the death, and inability to escape the death. Is it a similar reoccurring thought or vision in the peyote ceremonies?
Well, we like to, like I was saying, there's different ways to do the peyote ceremonies. And our particular ceremonies, we like to say that you meet life. And so we put the fire and the water in the ceremonies, in the central, in the altar. And we like people to see themselves in these elements. So fire is very bright. In fact, peyote, the word peyote itself means what illuminates your heart. It has the word light in the name. Shimmering heart, brilliant heart, glowing heart. This is the way the word peyote has been translated. So what it means is peyote increases your capacity for love and compassion and forgiveness. So you start expanding your field of love. And so this is what we call, it's very similar to Taoist or Buddhist meditation, where you say you're one with everything, one with the universe. This is kind of along the lines that we direct the energy of the peyote. So where the individual also receives many benefits, but at the same time, it's like a larger prayer, there are a larger intention. So, and this includes the earth, it includes the stars, it includes the moon, the planets, the sun. You start to expand your consciousness. You see, we exist on different levels of consciousness. The human consciousness is just one level. You know, we're part of the earth. The earth has a consciousness, but we forget. Sometimes ayahuasca will take you into this, you know, really internal, but then it also does open you up to the rest. And the peyote, sometimes because you're able to perceive this expansive world that we live in, so it makes you your love and your mind and everything expand into this larger field of existence.
Are there any precautions for peyote ceremonies? Is there any diet, like for ayahuasca, they recommend to keep a diet, or there is big no-nos like antidepressants and ayahuasca definitely don't work together, like eliminating serious drugs before coming to the ceremony. Are there any precautions like this that people have to take?
Well, normally I would say no, but you know, each case is particular. So, you know, before I just generally say there aren't any precautions, I guess it would be important to see the particulars. But in general, there are no precautions. In general, I mean, people have come that are taking like antidepressant drugs for a long part of their life, and they eat peyote and it helps them to, sometimes they even get off of these drugs for anxiety, drugs for depression, other mental disorders I should say. So yeah, peyote can be helpful for curing, not just treating these diseases. So sometimes these pharmaceutical drugs are trying to replace the hormones, and peyote will help the body produce the hormones that cause the stability, that cause the emotional balance, that cause the physical relaxation that the person needs. And you know, I can relate that I've seen this happen many times over the years. You know, people come with anxiety, situations where they're taking some pill that helps them to relax, and then after they eat the peyote, maybe they need to microdose for a week later or maybe a couple of weeks, but then afterwards they don't take the pharmaceuticals anymore. So it not only does not contradict, sometimes it can eliminate the use of this. And as far as food, you know, but I also should mention that there's different ways of doing it. Like if you want to do a fast, there's people that will go for 2 weeks fasting, and you walk through the desert, and you don't eat salt, you don't eat sugar, you're taking a certain diet, and then after 2 weeks of going and leaving offerings in different parts of the desert, you know, to the water, to the springs, to the mountains, then you eat a lot of peyote after this diet. And this is also another way of enhancing the effects, the healing effects and the spiritual effects by doing a diet like this. And this is also possible. In the modern world, you know, a lot of things change. You know, people are living in the modern world and they want to partake of these rituals. And so lots of times this is the main contradiction. If you want to know the contradiction, it's the modern world with the natural way of life. You know, the modern way of living with the spiritual existence. So this is the main contradiction. And that also includes the drugs and the food and everything else they're taking. Peyote has been helpful in curing drug addiction, alcohol addiction, different kinds of addictions, you know, and so sometimes people used to go and get the drug addicts and get the alcoholics and take them into the peyote ceremony, give them a lot of peyote, make them vomit all of that out, heal them, and then they would be good. They would cure them from those addictions.
What would you say to people that that are afraid they want to, kind of afraid to come to this kind of ceremonies?
Well, behind fear, there's usually knowledge.
Mm.
Like once you overcome a fear, you're probably going to learn something. And this is the same with these ceremonies. They're not going to hurt you. You know, okay, myself, I've been eating peyote for 50 years. No one has ever overdosed on peyote.
Mhm.
So what are you afraid of? Learning more about yourself? Healing your traumas? You know, maybe people are afraid it's gonna change them. Well, you know, there's no reason to be afraid of change. You know, change is positive. You have to get control of the change in your life so you can direct it. So really, I would say, you know, don't be afraid. In general, don't be afraid. In general, if you have doubts, doubt your own beliefs that are stopping you, that are obstacles for your own healing and your own expansion. So if you're afraid of anything, you know, you should be afraid of your own limitations that are keeping you from experiencing life to its fullest. So I would say at least come once, you know, try ayahuasca once, try peyote once. How could you say you're afraid of something you've never done? So this is what I would say to people who said they're afraid to try something. You know?
I think some people might be afraid, and they have this incorrect notion that it might be a drug and there might be addiction behind it. Is there any addiction to the power plants like peyote or ayahuasca?
No one is addicted to peyote, and no one is addicted to ayahuasca.
Mm.
They do not create addictions because they are not drugs. See, let's be perfectly clear. Ayahuasca is not a drug. Peyote is not a drug. Okay, drugs are produced in some laboratory. And these are the drugs that they're using to keep the people sick. It's not healing the people. The drugs are just maintaining the pharmaceuticals' profits. That's all they're doing, you know. So, yeah, I'm against drugs too. But plants are not drugs. And people need to learn how to use plants again. There's a whole pharmacopoeia of plants. For almost all the ills that humans have, there's probably a plant that could probably heal them. The Ayurvedic medicines, the natural methods, the naturopathic ways, you know, these do not use drugs. They use different techniques, healing techniques. And the plants are one of these healing techniques that are very powerful for human wellness.
Mm.
So, yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.